Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot and welcome to today's reading. So, today we are getting into this one came up recently. It came up yesterday, and it's one that comes up kind of in the notes from you guys periodically, and it's about breadcrumbing. So, it's about is this just an instance of breadcrumbing, or is there more to this? Just kind of trying to figure out what this person is feeling, I think, and that's kind of where we're at. So that's the one we're going to do today. It'll be general reading for this audience. So it's for this collective. If you are just now getting here and this resonates with you, then you may be part of the collective. You may want to take a look at some of the other videos, and you may also want to go ahead and subscribe. So just something to think about as we get started. I think I'm going to use this as my main deck, and I'll clarify with the big one. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start by looking at the energy between you, but it's going to be heavy on the energy with them. And I do that pretty often because it's a lot of times we're trying to get a feel for what exactly is happening with this person. Definitely a delay between where they are right now and where they would like to be ultimately. And I get the sense with this, they aren't exactly sure where they even want to be. So they know they're not happy. They know they're not where they want to be. They feel like they can do something, should do something, but aren't exactly sure what that something is. And so a lot of them, and this is just like going in, it wants to come out. A lot of them are reaching for a drink as a result of not exactly knowing what to do next. Okay, and then we've got the introspection card in the reverse. So the witch card is a lot like it's a card of manifestation, but a lot of times we see it as the magician in the traditional deck. And so it's got that sense to it with the manifestation. They feel, like I said, like they should be able to do something, but they can't really. And so they're kind of reaching for a drink instead. And that's not going to be everybody, but it is definitely going to be a few of them. Maybe a lot of them. With the introspection card in the reverse, though, here is, I don't want to think about it, So they've got things not exactly going the way that they want. Can't quite define what that means, but they feel like their efforts would not be futile. They just don't know which direction to go. It has that kind of Seven of Cups feeling to it, where I've got options, but I don't understand what to do next. But they aren't really looking into it with that introspection card there in the reverse. And so this is something that impacts you. So it's energy that's between you because it's impacting you. But this is really, it's very, what's coming out here is very heavy on their side, very much on the divine masculine side. And, that matches with what I've been feeling in the energy. This morning's meditation was kind of felt, it matched with that as well. Here's that Seven of Cups that we were just thinking about, or that I was just feeling. This is that feeling, like I said, of having options, but not knowing which way to take those options, not knowing which way to go. It matches with this card, the Witch card, because it feels like I really should be able to do something. I should be able to discern a path forward, but they're having a hard time with that. With the Nine of Pentacles, so this one's interesting. This one feels like, oftentimes, if you watch this channel, oftentimes you'll hear me say, hey, they're using your energy for strength. In this case, it's like they are reaching out, wanting to use your energy for strength, but can't exactly figure out how to do it. Either that or you're not giving it to them. So it could be, you can feel their energy reaching out to you, but maybe you're saying, okay, I'm busy right now. I'm not really going to give you this support at this time. And a lot of you, I would say, are fairly justified in doing that, especially those of you who are dealing with narcissists or being treated with those narcissistic tendencies. They're definitely kind of feeling that falling down sort of feeling with the Strength card, and it's coming out in a lot of ways. So some of them are reaching out and then doing kind of this thing where they reach out and then they retract again. So we talked yesterday about how to handle it if your person reaches out. There is definitely the energy of that, but we've also got lots of people who are not reaching out. And this is what's behind that, but this is also behind that retraction that you see in the people who are reaching out. It's the Fool in the reverse. They feel actually foolish. It's not just not being willing to jump into something new. It is, I feel foolish even for what I've done so far. It's got that element to it. And yet we've got this Wheel of Fortune, strong feeling of change. Oops, pulled over too many there. Strong feeling of change that's happening with them, but they haven't quite gotten on track with what that change is. So we know there's change happening. If you watch, then you know that there's been fairly consistent change happening with them. Sometimes they're moving backwards, sometimes they're having a setback, sometimes they're moving forward and they're crossing, new ground and turning new corners, and here they're feeling like this swirling winds of change, but they aren't quite sure what to do with it. Again, with I feel like I should be doing something, and this is them, feel like they should be doing something, don't really want to look too deeply into it because it's, again, like a light that's too bright to look at. And I say again because if you've gotten a personal reading from me lately, there's a good chance you've heard me say that, because it's one of those things that's come up here a lot lately. And then with the Seven of Cups, that feeling of, I know I should be doing something. I have these roads laid out in front of me, but I'm not exactly sure which way to go. I still don't quite feel like I've got it together, Okay, this starts to make a little bit of sense and put some color into that too. So we've got the Ten of Wands, ooh, and the Tower. All right, so, and then the High Priestess, but I'll get to that in just a second. So with the Ten of Wands, this one's tricky, okay? So they are taking on too much a little bit. I mean, they're taking on too much emotionally, but they're not exactly taking it on in a way that you might consider taking it on, because you're still possibly feeling like they're really doing a poor job of explaining exactly what they want, explaining what they mean. They are having a real hard time articulating it, but they're still feeling the pressure from it as if they could articulate it. Somewhere in the back of their mind, it's kind of happening, but it's not really happening as they communicate with you in a lot of cases. And in even more cases, there is no communication. So the communication that we felt, you may have felt it coming. You may have felt like they're pressing send, and what's happening, and they're not pressing send. They're writing it out, they're looking at it, and then they're second guessing themselves. Okay, so here's where we get this. The Tower is all about this change that they're feeling here creates a huge change in their emotions. Okay, it's taking its toll, I would say, on their emotions, but there's this sense of needing to remain secret. So there are, I guess, informational downloads that want to come to them, but they're not being able to receive those right now. And it's because they're being very closed off. So they're not able to receive messages, but they're also not able to really share. So this is a lack of vulnerability. It's like they want to, but they can't. And that is part of what you're feeling. A lot of consternation in this Tower. There's a lot of, this is, you see the tree kind of breaking here. And, it's going to fall. There's this sense of these nests that are up here, and these birds are kind of hanging on till the last minute. Little bit of that, and there's a lot of that hanging on till the last minute and really hiding behind this vulnerability. But at some point in here, it starts to feel smothering to them. Definitely getting a little bit of that sense in there. Oh, let's see here. I feel like we're not done pulling cards for that just yet. This has been a really interesting few days. I'll give it that. So over the weekend, we saw a lot of frustration and moving toward communication, but not necessarily quite knowing how to handle that communication. They feel like they're being teased with happiness, like they know exactly what they need to do, and then all of a sudden it goes away, and then they aren't sure how to move forward. So it sounds like happiness is playing with them or toying with them. And I mean, it's not personal, but they're definitely feeling like they're taking it personally. There's that sense. So here's a person that's kind of hiding behind vulnerability, or hiding behind a lack of vulnerability, feeling a lot of change, not quite sure how to move forward. And all of this is going to be impacting the energy that you feel from them. So this is not an easy place for them to be. Let's take a look here. See what the and when we get into this, this middle question is really going to be, is this just breadcrumbing? Is it something more? We see here that there's definitely a lot of energy of paying attention to you, paying attention to the situation, but not necessarily of getting the communication right. So it feels like breadcrumbing. It's going to look like breadcrumbing regardless of what it is. I think that we may have a case of, just based on what we're seeing here, and we'll see what else comes out. I feel like we've got a case of breadcrumbing, but we also have a case of there also being something more. I don't think they're being able to articulate the something more very well, or if they are, they articulate it and then they bail real quickly because it kind of freaks them out to say those things because it's not as vulnerable as they'd like to be. So they're feeling a lot of love. They're feeling a lot of love and the sense of wanting to make a new beginning, but having a really hard time doing that. So this potential card, it's the 0 in the tarot, just like the Fool over here. And it's got that feeling of I feel foolish for whatever I've done historically, whether it's recent or something that's a little bit farther back. But they feel they're really kind of riding the wave of that foolishness, and yet feeling a strong sense of that love that wants to blossom. But they're not ready yet. With the Awakening here in the reverse, that is like the Judgment card. And it's a strong sense of that healing not being done. So for those of you who are receiving communications, and I realize that some of you, but not all, if you look at the comments, you see comments from people who are receiving communications, and I'm getting personal notes from people who are receiving communications, but I'm getting far more from people who are saying, who are all these people receiving communication? Why am I not one of them? So if you're not receiving communications, don't feel alone in that. There are lots of people who aren't, and this is why they aren't to that point of internal reconciliation to where they can do a proper communication yet. Okay, so 8 of Wands, feeling of stagnancy, but it's like a stagnant pool that they've put themselves into, not a stagnant pool that they are being kept in. With that Wheel of Fortune over there, the change is happening. So we've got a Queen of Swords and the Moon in reverse. They're getting information, and it doesn't stop them from hesitating. They feel incredibly hesitant about moving forward because they kind of feel like they've already messed some things up. And yet they got to push forward in some ways because they've got that strong sense of understanding that there's love for you here. This is not just a fly-by-night thing. This is actually love. This is actually wanting to make something good out of it and feeling like they don't quite know how to go about doing that. There's a lot of frustration, like I said, that's consternation in this feeling over here and in this Tower. That's true, but it's like they're awake to it a little bit more, which makes them, that's what's making them reach for the drink, because it's difficult when you have information that's coming to you. You can't quite avail yourself of it, but you're incredibly aware of what's going on. And we've seen this growing sense of awareness in this Divine Masculine that has just made things very touchy and difficult for them. That has come out a lot over the weekend in the meditations and the readings. And it's been tough. It's been absolutely tough to watch, because here we have the Ace of Cups in the reverse. So here with the Ace of Cups in the upright, that's all the love that wants to come out. Here is them smothering it. So they're feeling smothered. They feel like happiness is toying with them, and like they're not really able to move forward. So it's like the Lover's card in reverse a little bit. And I know we don't have that out here yet, but I feel that same sense of, I want to be able to move forward, but I feel like my hands are tied in some way. And in some cases, it's definitely them and their attitudes tying their own hands, like with this Potential and this Fool card in the reverse. It's them talking themselves out of some things. But they're also recognizing some truths with the Ace of Swords here. And then we do want the Seven of Pentacles. Okay, they're recognizing some truths with the Ace of Swords, but they're feeling like they don't have deserving, because they don't deserve it because they haven't invested. The Seven of Pentacles, I often say, is a card of investment, and this is no exception, except here in the reverse, they're feeling as if they have not properly invested, and they're feeling like they're really being kind of smacked by that realization over and over. And so there's a desire for them to move forward, and they quash that desire to move forward. So if you're feeling a lot of energetic movement, that has a lot to do with it. Plus, if you're not being super receptive to that energetic movement and you're saying, I'm moving on to something that sets my soul on fire, I'm focusing my energy someplace else. So your advice has often been to leave the door open and then not watch, kind of go off and do something else and not watch to see if they're walking through it. So you're not blocking them out, but because it tends to block you, kind of like what they're doing here with this high priestess. But it also has you focusing elsewhere, and they're really feeling the absence of your energy pulling on them, which the energy pulling on them has been what was keeping them staying away. You know, someone asked in a note to me about the hyper focus that I mentioned in one of the previous readings, and asked if the hyper focus is likely to push them away, and did I mean like they're the thoughts that are pushing them away because you're maybe having obsessive thinking about them, or is it the actions where you'd be reaching out? And honestly, it is both. And so in this case here, it's a matter of they're not seeing or feeling as much of that obsessive thinking. They're not seeing as much of that you reaching out energy. And so it's causing them to kind of want to come back. Creates a little bit of an energy vacuum, and it makes them want to come back and communicate. It's that same feeling. We saw that Knight of Swords come out earlier, and on that I felt like I wasn't supposed to include it in the reading, but I also felt like it's a little bit of that honorable mention of, here's a person that is they feel like they want to run away, but they want to make sure that you're still there. A lot of anxiety here. There's definitely a lot of anxiety in them about this, and it has to do with the amount of love that they're pushing back and that they're quelling, because they feel like they're not ready, they can't move forward. And in many ways they're really not ready, because they've got a lot of healing to do, but they don't know how to engage in that healing. So that feels like almost an afterthought to them. They're like, yeah, I've got this healing to do, but right now I've got anxiety. And they're not necessarily making the connection that fixing that anxiety will be part and parcel to doing that healing. It's just not an instant gratification type of situation. Healing, and you know this because you've been working through all of the steps and working through it very slowly. It feels so slow sometimes, and they're not necessarily taking those very intentional steps to make things better for themselves. They're seeing, here's the finish line out in front of me, and I can't get to it. Not only can I not get to it, but I'm not even really allowing myself to move that direction. So we've got the World card. This is the card of a happy ending. And it's that same feeling that we get with the Sun, where it feels like happiness is toying with them. They feel like they're not being given the opportunity to move into happiness. And it's got a little bit of that sense, and I'm not going to slam your person, and please don't take it that way, but this has that sense of them kind of blaming everybody but themselves for the feelings that they're having and for the shortcomings that honestly do come back to them. So we've got the Temperance and the King of Swords. The good news is they've got the capacity, if they were to slow down and recognize some things about themselves, which they have the ability to do. They're just not quite there yet with this Awakening card being in the reverse. And they're spending too much energy on worrying about whether they look foolish from what they've done before, whether they look foolish to others. They've got this capacity with the King of Swords to really get in there and understand what's happening and what they're doing. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's going to require them to kind of step back and take a look at the big picture of the situation. And, maybe the hesitation ends up working in their favor on this one. So we have the Queen of Swords over here that represents that hesitation. But it's like if they don't actually take that step back and look at the big picture, they're not going to be able to put the drink down. They're not going to be able to, and that's not a literal drink for everybody, but there's something that they're using to kind of cover it up. They're not going to be able to stop covering it up for themselves if they are unable to really think things through, and this is what's required. But they have the capacity to do that, which is definitely a positive thing. This is somebody who's capable of doing that. They are trying to move toward balance. We see this in almost every reading. They're trying to move toward balance. One of the things that frustrates them right now is that they're not really able to feel your support in this regard as much as they would like to. But by the same token, it feels like, you know what, ultimately I'm going to get there. But then they feel like they're being toyed with by happiness. And so they're getting more and more frustrated, but they're really the ones standing in their own way. So very consistent with what we've seen. This is why you see that unhealed communication when you see communication, but a lot of you are still not seeing the communication. I guess I'm curious to understand a little bit more of what's happening in their feelings. So we see a little bit of their feelings coming out here, but the how do they feel about you? How do they feel about this relationship? I think that's where we're going to start when we get into the extended to kind of understand that a little bit more. Link to the extended is down below. Link to the Etsy site where if you need a personal reading is down below. But I've also added the link to my personal, well, my business website. And it's got everything. So it would point you, people are Googling me and not figuring out exactly where to go. So there's YouTube. The link for this is here. The link to Etsy is there. Also, there's a little bit of a shop there for some of the cards that I have to clear some of these shelves. I just have so many decks and things that I don't use as much anymore because as the business changes, as the way things come out change, there are certain things that don't resonate the same way as they once did. So they're not bad decks, but you won't see them on this channel anymore. Just because I kind of moved away from them. So if you're interested in those, then they're out there. Just things that I have used in the past that maybe I'm not using so much anymore. I'm going to go ahead and I'm exercising my ability to release them. And so that's what that is. But that's I got kind of off in a tangent there. But if you scroll down, you'll be able to find the link to the extended. Let's look at you, though. Every reading, we like to look at you. We like to see what's going on with what you need to be aware of and what you need to be focusing on, given what else is on this table here. So let's look at that before we get into the extended. All right, so we've got the Nymph of Wands. That is youthful, creative, willing to try new things sort of energy. With the Wayfarer, though, this has you almost cutting yourself off at the knees. So be aware that even with this energy of being willing to try new things, it's also kind of a little bit of that is a willingness to try things that aren't just new, but also it's a bad idea. So the fact that... I just dropped some. The fact that that Wayfarer card is there might be beneficial because this actually represents a little bit of a hesitation for you as well. But you've got things changing in your life. So you've got new information coming that is probably going to shift things around for you. And it's not the sort of change that changes everything and all of a sudden your life starts to fall apart. It's the sort of change where you're going to get... updated information on something, and this could be at work, it could be in some other element of your life, but it impacts you pretty globally, and you're able to say, okay, I can adjust to this. It's not life-shattering type stuff. It's I can adjust to it type energy. But just so you know, that's part of, if you've got a little bit of a hesitation here and energy of a hesitation, I think it might serve you well. You would also be recommended to take a step back and look at the big picture if at all possible. All right, so you've got a Knight of Cups. You may find your own emotions starting to feel a little bit limited in this energy, or feeling like maybe you have always wanted to reach out and talk to this person, but the more you think about it, the more you realize, no, I'm going to wait for them to do what they're going to do and to get through some of this healing. Again, probably feels like a pretty good thing to do because you've got this Knight of Pentacles here, which even though we talked about the energy of your transition into what you're becoming. So you are transitioning into something new, but it's happening very slowly. The Knight of Pentacles here says it's also happening very steadily. So a lot of positivity in that, because that Knight of Pentacles, definitely my favorite knight in that regard. I mean, I like passion like anybody else, but Knight of Pentacles is the one that gets there. And that's the energy that you're bringing. So you have the King of Pentacles. You got to make sure that you're aware of whether or not you feel like you really deserve this. There might be a little bit of a feeling of, I would call it imposter syndrome. It has a little bit of that imposter syndrome, and this could be happening at work, could be it could be manifesting in all areas of your life, relationships, work, feeling like you don't necessarily deserve what's there. Keep working through it. It does feel really slow, but you are moving forward, even if it is ultimately, you have to back away, back up and look at the big picture a little bit to see that. If you're taking a couple of steps forward, a couple steps back, and it's like, well, half the time it feels like I'm moving backwards, take a look at the big trajectory because you're going to find that you're generally moving forward. But you may have some need to really understand what it is that you want. This hesitation that I'm getting in here feels like a gift in more ways than one. So we know there's information in here that wants to shift you. We know there's maybe, a tendency to jump into something that isn't the most healthy option that you have, and that hesitation maybe is going to save you a little bit. There's a need to kind of sit back and figure out, well, where is it that I ultimately want to go? It's that Eight of Cups lesson around determining that it's time to go on the quest, which feels like hitting the stop button on moving forward sometimes, but it really isn't. Ultimately, like I was saying before with this Knight of Pentacles, you are moving forward. It's just that some of the steps, they're switchbacks. Some of the steps are not feeling like they're moving toward your goal. But here with the Eight of Cups, it's really a matter of needing to get into yourself and truly define that goal, because it's not necessarily where it has always been. So it isn't that you haven't defined the goal in the past. Wouldn't suggest that at all. But it does have the feeling of maybe needing to jump in and discover something about yourself that helps you figure out and light your path forward, because you also, just like them, have a lot of different options there that you maybe haven't determined which way you're going to go. So we've got the King of Wands. Oh, we got the King of Wands and the Page of Wands. And this is actually kind of, it's passionate, it's exciting energy, but it's also an incredibly organized version of this King of Wands, because the King of Wands is passionate. It pushes forward. Sometimes it gets a little bit too pushy forwards. Not in this case, though. I get the sense here that this is going to be nicely tempered by that tendency to hesitate. So when you feel like, no, I'm ready to move forward, and then you start to doubt yourself, allow this Page of Wands. This is more of a balanced Page of Wands energy than what we have with the Nymph of Wands over here. So this is leading you into a direction that is not necessarily a great direction. This Page of Wands is actually the inspiration that you need to move forward when it becomes evident which way you want to go. So when you find something that kind of sets your soul on fire, don't sit back and ignore it. This is the energy that will allow you to move forward with it. And it's going to reestablish something for you. So over here we have this Four of Wands in reverse, saying something from your life is essentially going to shift. It's going to require you to make a shift, but it's going to put you in a place that is it's going to give you a happy new beginning, but I don't know that this is with a person. I think this is within you. It's a happy new beginning within you that will, of course, avail you of all the rest of the positive energy that that could be coming through with this. And we've got the Hierophant. Okay, so keep your ears open for something that essentially amounts to new advice that's going to help you determine how and when you want to move forward. So this hesitation is a gift, once again, but you are going to ultimately want to move forward. And this Hierophant energy is someone giving you some spiritual guidance that allows you to kind of put the pieces together to be able to move forward. So this is not necessarily shooting forward quickly sort of energy, but it does enable you ultimately, as you work through it, to move forward fairly passionately, and with it's an enjoyable feeling of moving forward. This is not slogging forward. This is enjoyable, but it has to have this period of uncertainty that you may already be in that precedes it. So this may also be why your person is feeling a little less in touch with your strength, because they're having a harder time relying on it because you're using it, and you've pulled a little bit more back into yourself, or you're in the process of doing that so that you can navigate this path. So let's get into that extended. If you want to, like I said, just scroll down, get into that description for the video, and it'll have the link to the extended down below. We're going to get in a little bit more and understand kind of what is happening with this person's feelings towards you, towards the relationship, and we'll see where it takes us from there. So thanks for being here with me for this, and I will look forward to seeing you either in that extended or in tomorrow's reading.